Overwatch 2.
Wait, what do you mean they're going back to Overwatch?
Narrated by Jesse Levine.
Good evening, everyone. This is your host, Jess. And you know, I gotta applaud it to Overwatch. Or in this case, they are Overwatch now. Overwatch is actually back to being Overwatch 1. It's back to being Overwatch. Overwatch 2 is dead. It's gone. Putting it all together like that, it's just seeing that change is just so unbelievably funny to me. I'm not going to continue laughing, but the idea of making a sequel, getting rid of the first game, then seeing the second game, then go back to the same title as Overwatch is a level of comical that is more savory than any dessert, any umami flavor. It is beautiful. It is so beautiful. And the only reason why they are actually changing Overwatch 2 back to Overwatch is because they finally found the safe that I had kept away for an Overwatch update. That is right. The reason why Overwatch 2 did not launch with that much significant content is because I put it all in a safe. It was all in a safe the whole time. Some of the Blizzard devs said to me, you know, I'm not a big fan of insert character from Overwatch here. And I said, you know what? Instead of discussing this like a reasonable human being, I'm going to put your update into a box. Not just any box, a big metal box with the passcode on it. And they're like, wait, we're about to release Overwatch 2. You can't do this. And I said to them, I didn't say anything to them. I just put the update in the box. And for the entirety of Overwatch 2, all that content that would have been there for the story, all the planned other stuff for PvP, it was all in the box. They never figured out the passcode. They were silly. They were so silly to try and open it. And all I had was such a simple demand. Add 10v10. I don't think that was such a bad demand, you know? I think it would have been good for the game. I think it would have been hilarious. But they said, no, that's too much change, no! And so they get punished for that. I put the update into a box, and they were never able to actually get the box open. And so people were like, oh, there's no Overwatch update to Overwatch 2. What are we here for? Let's play the new Marvel Rivals game that actually just released a game instead of just like a couple of like used gum wrappers and like a used Wendy's coupon. I gotta say, it was a brilliant ploy. You know, so there's a degree of pettiness to where a beautiful, beautiful display can unfold beneath you. And as you stand on your ivory tower, you just look down at the chaos that unfolds in front of you, and you sip on your glass of wine thinking, man, I could really go for a game of Deadlock right about now. And they begged and they pleaded. They offered me in-game currency. They offered me cheap wine. I'm not that very cheap of a person when it comes to wine. They offered me one sandwich. 2 would have been the deal right there. That would have actually been the deal right there. But I said no to all of it. They looked at this giant safe, and you know, they used a number of tools to try and open it. You might think they could try and break it open. Already thought of that. I made it impenetrable to any sort of material. So it's essentially a bank vault, but the size of a bank vault. They tried doing a number of guesses, but the thing is, I put a giant loud horn that would play sound the entire time, so they really couldn't stick something up against it and try to hear for when the pins on the lock would go off. They even tried making content for the game themselves. What fools they were to think I didn't already have it in a box. I would just move it into the box while they weren't looking. And they couldn't fire me because, well, I'm the one who held on to the box. They couldn't get rid of me. I had it all in the box. And so they had to keep me around. They tried to keep me away from the computers, but I just plugged in a USB cable into, like, their GPU, and I started haxering in and sending all of that into the safe. But unfortunately, there was one thing unaccounted for. While, yes, I did put all of the game content for Overwatch 2 in a safe, I forgot to put the Overwatch content back in the safe. Now, you see, before they stopped updating a lot of significant stuff to Overwatch in pursuit of Overwatch 2, I may have started to collect a little bit of content that would have been released. They were focusing on Overwatch 2, they wouldn't mind if content for Overwatch 1 went missing. It was all gonna go away, It's like, who cares? Who cared? They're working on the other game. No, who cares? Apparently, no one really did care, because they completely forgot about Overwatch 1 when they started making a half-baked PvE mode that I put in a safe. It was a full-baked PvE mode, but then I cut it up into delicious slices and put it into the safe. It ended up rotting, by the way, because cake doesn't really last long. And as I chuckled in my ivory tower that they couldn't even get the Overwatch 2 update content, they found out that I had Overwatch content stuffed in a bag. That was it. I just put it in a bag because, I didn't think it'd really be back ever. I didn't think they would ever use it for anything. And then, wow, just look at that. They found all of that Overwatch content and they're like, we're going back to how Overwatch used to be. And they're throwing out 10 characters. I mean, the cat looks really funny. Oh man, the cat's looking really funny. The cat is so funny looking. And I was completely flabbergasted that I dropped my wine onto the floor, my delicious $5 wine. I was like, how did they get all this content for Overwatch? I've been siphoning into safes for years. And then I discovered the empty bag in my closet. How dare they release an update for Overwatch that's actually significant? You think I put all this work to try to get 10v10 and you think you can just undercut me like I am some kind of slime, some kind of thing, some piece of garbage that you can just throw aside? And then after this, they still haven't fired me, by the way. I still have the Overwatch 2 safe. So it's like, we're still good on that part end. But they think they can get one on me. I know exactly why they're thinking this. They think we're going to go back to Overwatch just to signify that they can do things and add content without me getting my hands on it first. Let's just say Overwatch, not Overwatch 2. You better keep releasing content, I'll say. Well, otherwise, other games that are updating are gonna probably come in and sweep the glory. I mean, that's exactly what happened with Marvel Rivals. I mean, seriously, that was a really, really bad release for Overwatch 2. I mean, that was awful. I mean, that was horrible. That was awful. Which is why they should have delayed it, put in 10v10, and they would have gotten so much juicy, delicious content. But I will forgive this slight Overwatch thinking that you can add significant amounts of game into your game, thinking that, oh, I won't notice, but I did notice. I noticed a lot. I see everything because I hacksaw into the computers. And while I can't stop content from having gone into the game without putting in 10v10, I will say this. With the new Overwatch update, I'm just going to be saying this. When you hear this, it's just saying, I'm not pointing to anything. But you'll see. You'll see exactly what I mean. So, there's a character called Vendetta in Overwatch 2. And she is like, I am Tony Soprano, gabagool, gabagool. That's what she says, by the way. And she walks up to Doomfist, who is not a character from The Sopranos. He is, in fact, a black man by American standards. Now, let me tell you, the time that this update came out, what month is it in the United States of America? February. What month is February? Black History Month. And you might be thinking to yourself, what does this have anything to do with any sort of implication that I'm not implying whatsoever? So this new character that just shows up is stronger than the old character because, he's so silly, he's so goober, he's so, I don't really have an explanation for why the events have occurred besides, we're just wiping the slate clean. So, might as well just do this. It'll be significant. Ooh. And then they show like fingers going above you, like, ooh, like ghost stories. But Vendetta, mind you, who has not 3v1'd Winston, Genji, and Tracer, who does not have a very funny punch, was like, Doomfist, I'm gonna cut off your arm. Doomfist. And then she cuts off Doomfist's arm and then pushes him out of a building. Well, it's like kind of just like throws him out of the building. But Black History Month, Doomfist is given basically a fake out death. Now, I'm not saying anything here. I'm giving you the evidence. Now, I'm not trying to imply anything here. What I'm trying to say is that, there's just a couple of coinkydinks that have happened to line up in the certain regards to one video game that has been struggling a little bit. And, this kind of information wouldn't want to be, the main idea behind the game, like one certain Cassidy. There's a lot of controversies, Blizzard, and I think in order to keep this from getting out to the general public, I feel like you should put in 10v10, Blizzard. I think 10v10 would be very funny, Blizzard. Or else I will have to release the Doomfist files. What, do you think I was going to say that they were racist? No! Time's up. No, it is me, Doomfist from Overwatch. This is what is in the Doomfist files. Gabagool. And most importantly, Gabagool. And now, Overwatch, you have been cancelled.